Hi everyone. In this tutorial, I'm going to go over setting up a still life at home, fixed position, and some things to consider when choosing your objects. Before I begin, I want to address where you should place your still life in relation to you, the drawer. If you're right-handed, your still life should be positioned on the left side. And if you're left-handed, it should be positioned onto the right. Now, ideally, your still life is not directly to the side of you, but slightly askew. Now, some of you will be using the wall to secure your drawing board when you're working from home. This does mean that your still life will more than likely be to your side, and that's okay. It does make it a bit more challenging to draw, but it still works. But if you do have a choice to not work against a wall, consider this when you form your drawing space. So here's a basic setup that I put together. Notice that I placed the objects on a piece of newsprint paper. This is important for two reasons. One, it gives me a clean surface, free from distraction. The table that I had the still life sitting on is covered in paint, so the newsprint helps diffuse the chaos so I can focus on the objects. This also means that you want a background free from distraction as well. So I recommend having your still life against a wall. This way you can add different backgrounds easily if you decide. The second reason for placing the objects on newsprint is for drawing a footprint. Ideally, your still life is in a place where it can be, well, left still and untouched. But maybe you have a drawing that takes you weeks to complete and you have to tear down your still life at the end of every day. So how do you get your still life set back as close as possible to what it was the day before? Aside from taking photos to reference later when you reset, drawing a footprint onto the newsprint can help with this process. I recommend using graphite for this process because of its low contrast to newsprint. Using something with a high contrast, like a Sharpie marker, can distract from the objects. Now let's talk about fixed position. Your fixed position is the exact location of your eyes in relation to the subject. A common mistake students make is that they're not mindful of their fixed position. Maybe you've been drawing for a while, or you start to round your back because of fatigue, or maybe you just got up to get yourself a cup of coffee. Either way, if your fixed position changes while you are drawing, what you see then will be different from your current drawing. Even minor adjustments in your seat can cause this. Now, it's not that you can't move once you've started drawing. It's just that you want to take a mental snapshot of that still life and learn to recognize when you're seeing something different than that mental snapshot. Experienced artists know how to do this without even thinking about it. It has become natural. Which is why if you're only drawing from photographs, you'll never be able to do this. Practicing drawing from photographs is learning to do something else. The lens of a camera sees differently than the lens of the human eye. The lens of a camera sees things the human eye doesn't. This is why drawing things from photographs can look kind of dead. And yes, people with experience in art can usually tell. This is why it's important to learn how to draw from life first, and then later in your career, it's okay to then use photos for reference, because you'll be experienced in how to counter that deadness. Plus, you'll be able to make a better judgment on when using a photo is appropriate. Bottom line, not learning how to draw from life will create problems with your drawing ability down the road, and you won't have the same confidence as a drawer who can. The last thing I want to go over are some things to consider when choosing your objects. Each object or figure has its own individual form, but groupings of objects together can also create their own form collectively. Some of these forms are more geometric, as in they reference geometry, while others are organic, they're flowing and irregular. Some objects have high complexity, while others have low complexity. Some are in open form, creating room for space, while others are closed in form, leaving no room for space. Arrangement can lead to creating psychic lines, like an object that points, or it can lead to implied lines, like having a series of dots that can be connected by a line. All of this can create directional forces and movement. So keep these things in mind when building your still lifes and composition. Now, sometimes I'm going to ask for specific things to be in your still life, like a form with low complexity. But for the most part, it's something you can get creative with. Dishes, blankets, furniture, books, fruit, vegetables, plants, or even things that you forged outside. Those all work great for still life. The only thing that I ask that you not use are action figures and dolls. They're very difficult to draw as objects, and most end up being drawn in a style of a comic book fashion by default. I hope this has helped give you some ideas for setting up your still lives. Be sure to check out the tutorial on composition to maximize your still life choices.